Welcome to the project. Tonight, on the ground in Gaza, we speak to an Aussie doctor on the front line as the ceasefire crumbles.
Also, the resurgence of a deadly disease we thought we'd killed off, why it's spreading here and overseas.
Plus, the pop country superstar riding high on the country charts, Thomas Rhett, is dropping in.
And how sending emails on the loo might be a man's superpower. Forget Batman and the Flush, we've got Bogman and the Flush. Flush twice, possibly.
See, you can multitask. We're live from the lands of the cool and nature. It's a huge welcome to Nick Cody.
Hello, and of course, and good evening.
Getting ready to rumble. Let's get into tonight's top stories now. And drama for Peter Dutton today. He was heckled by anti-nuclear energy protesters while delivering a speech in Sydney. The opposition leader had just taken to the stage when they interrupted his address. Both men were quickly removed by federal police and security.
Implications.
Mr. Dutton, why are you lying to the Australian people about the cost of nuclear?
Well, despite the shock loss of almost 53,000 jobs last month, the unemployment rate has remained steady at 4.1% in February. More young people got a job, fewer older Aussies returned to work. And while another interest rate cut isn't expected until July, today's figures did bolster hopes it might happen as early as May.
Queenslanders are again on high alert tonight as floodwaters rise across the state's north. The Bruce Highway has been cut. Torrential rain has seen rivers and creeks, still swollen from last month's flood, burst their banks. Homes are isolated at Ingham and Cardwell, which received almost half a metre of rain in 24 hours, a new March record.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety. The February event was a big event. It was a massive flood, but we do have a resilient community. They do know that we live in the tropics, and they do know that flooding, does occur.
And when it comes to bedtime battles between couples, turns out even the Obamas aren't immune. In an upcoming podcast episode, Michelle Obama revealed her pet peeves, one of them being clashing sleep schedules with her husband. She says she loves an early bedtime, ideally any time after dinner, unlike Barack, who likes to stay up late.
My husband teases me about how early I can go to bed. He just doesn't understand the idea of getting into some good sheets and it's cool.
Oh, I just forgot everything I was going to say because I think Michelle Obama was flirting with me.
She's right, though.
Yeah, she absolutely is.
Sheets,
Totally.
the comfort of a good mattress. I mean, why would you waste time out of bed?
A couple of years ago, I was absolutely a night out. Now, seriously, after dinner, I want to be asleep.
Really?
But also, how great are sheets in the morning when you get to sleep in? And if you just do both, why don't we just live in bed?
No, hold on a second.
Yeah.
You know the feeling of sheets in the morning because you barely sleep at night, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's true. So this is my story. So Susan will go to bed. She would go to bed at 3 p.m. if she could. Like, by the time she reaches a nursing home, she's well ahead of schedule.
My people.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the total opposite. We've actually had nights where I've gone to bed as she's woken up.
Doing shifts.
What are you doing?
Me?
You out at the rev or something?
No, I'm just doing research, Sarah. I'm reading encyclopedias. Is what I'm doing.
No wonder she goes to bed.
Sounds extra sus. Now to Victoria, where Premier Jacinta Allen is under big pressure. Her response? Going after the Ocker vote.
Yes.
If they were fair dinkum about supporting the government's tough new bail laws, if they were fair dinkum about supporting community safety, if they were fair dinkum about getting on, if they were fair dinkum...
Oh, Struth, guys, the flaming galahs are breaking in with machetes. The jail should be chockers. Just take it easy, Jacinta.
Fair income. Now, measles. It's the childhood virus that is almost entirely preventable, but now the once dormant disease is on the rise. It's spread fuelled by falling vaccination rates. So just how bad could it get?
In 2014, the WHO declared it eliminated from Australia. Now, the deadly disease is making a comeback.
Measles is no joke. All the potential complications, things we don't want to see and things we don't need to see.
Across Australia, 29 cases of the measles have been reported already this year, compared to 57 for the whole of 2024 and just 26 in 2023. The virus, brought into Australia by travellers returning from Southeast Asia.
If the current trajectory so far this year continues, we'll probably see double the number of cases that we saw last year.
Last year, Europe recorded the highest number of measles cases in nearly 3 decades. And in the US, a measles outbreak across multiple states is surging. Ground zero, Texas, where last month measles killed an unvaccinated 6-year-old child.
The reason it's happening is because we have a large unvaccinated population in West Texas.
Vaccination, the best defence against the disease.
The vaccine's one of the safest, most effective vaccines we have. 2 doses is 97% protective.
But those vaccines are being undermined by the country's very own health secretary.
They're getting very, very good results from budesonide, which is a steroid, and clarithromycin, and also cod liver oil, which has high concentrations of vitamin A and vitamin D.
Like COVID, measles spreads through airborne droplets, and for the unvaccinated, the risks are real. In mild cases, measles can cause a rash and fever. In severe cases, it can lead to brain swelling, blindness, hearing loss, and pneumonia.
About 1 in 5 people can end up in hospital, about 1 in 1,000 can die.
Highly contagious, measles is more infectious than COVID, smallpox, and Ebola, which means to prevent outbreaks, 95% of the population needs to be vaccinated. Right now, less than 91% of 2-year-olds in Australia are fully immunised.
Declining vaccination rates are in play here. Part of that is due to vaccine fatigue and suspicion over vaccines that developed through the pandemic period.
So as cases of measles mount, just how worried should we be?
Well, Margie Danton is a professor of paediatrics and a vaccine expert at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute. Professor, just how worried should we be about this?
Look, as you said in the introduction, we've already seen 29 cases in Australia this year, which might not seem like much, but last year we saw 57 for the whole year, and in 2021 there was 0. And as you've highlighted, there's been a global increase in measles cases with, 300 cases in the US and a preventable death in a 6-year-old primary school child in America. I mean, this is extremely concerning. Parents are not familiar with the signs of measles. Many have never seen it. Many paediatricians and doctors have never seen measles. So we really need to alert the public and the community what to look out for, how nasty measles is. As you said in the introduction, or as Sanjay said, 1 in 5 people can be admitted to hospital, 1 in 20 can develop pneumonia, and 1 in 1,000 can get really severe brain swelling or encephalitis. So this is nasty. Parents need to know how to prevent it and what are the signs to look out for.
Professor, how quickly could something like this spread?
Well, unfortunately, in Australia, we've seen a progressive decline in our childhood vaccination coverage rate since 2020. At the moment, we give 2 doses of the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine at 12 months and 18 months, and we're only seeing coverage rates around the country between 90 and 91%. For the measles vaccine, we need at least 93 to 95% for that herd immunity threshold. And in some places around Australia, like the Northern Rivers region, the New South Wales hinterland, the measles vaccine coverage rate is around 70 to 75%. And we also know, very importantly, that in a completely unvaccinated population, 1 primary measles case can lead to 18 secondary cases. So this virus is a heat-seeking missile. It will spread rapidly in unvaccinated communities, and we need to get on to improving coverage.
The drop-off in those vaccination rates you mentioned is pretty alarming. Do we have a vaccine hesitancy issue that's growing?
I think everyone needs to be aware that the gap in under-vaccination is not just due to hesitancy or concerns. In fact, what we've shown with research that has been funded by the Commonwealth Government in partnership with Murdoch Children's Research Institute, University of Sydney and the National Centre for Immunisation Research and Surveillance is that the main barrier for partially vaccinated children, so these are unvaccinated kids, is practical barriers. So what do I mean by that? That means parents are struggling to be able to make an appointment with a GP. They can't afford the costs associated with vaccination, and they are not prioritising vaccination over other things. Now, that might be quite shocking to people in Australia. The vaccines are free, but there are really disadvantaged families and pockets where people cannot access vaccination. They might be working full-time, single families. We need to improve access to vaccination for families.
I have to admit, Margie, this is not a story I expected to be doing, but here we are. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.
Time for a break. We'll see you very soon.
Welcome to the project.
A Queensland woman has complained on social media about being bucked off a mechanical bull ride and injured during a night out in Surfers Paradise. With a black eye and a bump to the head, she fumed that she never expected to be put in danger. The venue says patrons ride at their own risk, and they're warned the bull is designed to dislodge the rider.
So, just checking, she didn't expect to be in danger on the bucking bull in Surfers Paradise.
No.
That's actually one of the healthier nights out in Surfers. The times I've been out drinking in Surfers Paradise, if I just came away with one head bump, what an absolute victory. I'd be bragging the next day, not
even
complaining.
the waiver she had to sign prior to that gave it away, that it might be a bit dangerous getting on.
Well, hang on, Sarah. In fairness, it was her first rodeo.
I love what the pub manager says. We make it very clear that going on the mechanical bull is a choice. And no one is ever pressured or forced to ride it. Have you ever done one?
I have not, but I would absolutely.
So,
Hang on, can we film this?
No! Why? No way! Why are you asking me this live on air?
Yeah,
Because this is how I
You're
get you to
asking a
commit.
mechanical bull
into
question to the wrong end of the desk.
Okay.
I've done about 8.
Yeah, but it's less
idea.
fun if you do it.
Why?
Because you probably know what you're doing.
No, I've done it 8 times, once sober. The time I hurt myself, sober. That's what's happened there. She's been thinking about what can happen next.
Yeah.
You don't need that. You've got to be flimsy. Just floppy, land somewhere.
Just all delayed instinct.
Exactly.
That's what it is, yeah.
All right, time now to see what else is making news around the world.
Their Oval Office clash behind them, Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky talked about ending the war with Russia. Zelensky described their conversation as positive, but as he agreed to a limited ceasefire to protect energy facilities and hopefully civilian infrastructure, Trump also made a play for Ukraine's power plants.
American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure.
It's been given the green light. A new no-find, no-fee search is being launched for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The plane vanished in 2014 with 239 people on board, including 6 Australians. Exploration company Ocean Infinity will cover 15,000 square kilometres of the southern Indian Ocean. It'll receive $110 million if the wreckage is found. And the internet is going crazy for a Dutch fish doorbell that's helping fish reach shallow spawning grounds. An underwater camera streams live video from a river lock. When enough fish gather at the gate, fans press the doorbell. The lockmaster opens the gate and the fish swim through.
There's people just offering a little bit of help to create a little bit of a better environment, help nature out.
I don't fully understand. Is there a doorbell on site?
I think it's remote, isn't it?
It's only online.
That the fish can hear.
I'm not expecting the fish to open the door themselves, but I just don't fully understand why would people just be sitting online pressing that doorbell non-stop, or are people more helpful than I imagine they would be?
Well,
Sorry, was that the Netherlands where marijuana is legal? Hey guys, can we press a doorbell to let the fish through?
Yes, we can. Let's give access
Someone's
to the
been
world.
in a cafe. Now, to South Australia, where State Treasurer Stephen Mulligan launched our newest military vehicle based on an Aussie classic, and it's got a pretty catchy name.
It gives me great pleasure to be here at Raytheon Australia to launch Australia's newest ute, the Electronic Warfare Tactical Engagement Vehicle.
And now that we know what it's called, let's have a look at the thing.
oh,
They've done it, guys. The military made a ute. Still less wanky than a Ford Raptor Ranger. I'll give you that.
How much do you want it?
Oh, I want one real bad.
What's a right season? Nicholas.
In Melbourne, the Federal Infrastructure Minister made a huge announcement about the long-awaited airport rail link. It's the day Melburnians have been waiting decades for, and it's finally happening. Is it happening?
Today is a great day for Melbourne Airport Rail. We have signed a memorandum of understanding between the Commonwealth of Australia, the Victorian Government and Melbourne Airport to decide the process by which we're going to reach agreement to get Melbourne Airport Rail done.
Congratulations, Melbourne. We've announced meetings. I assume the train will be Jetstar because we've been waiting for ages.
It's like Utopia, isn't it? It runs itself. Our next guest stole our hearts at 12 years old when she won Australia's Got Talent. Now she's back to bless our ears once again.
Deep conversation, to me, is about really opening up, breaking someone down, breaking those barriers and just like having that beautiful, pure connection and being able to just talk about anything and everything. I love a good D&M.
She's good. Bonnie Anderson joins us.
Thank you.
Single called Deep Conversation. How deep are we talking here, girl?
Ooh,
do you have time for
pretty
deep conversations anymore?
I think they're pretty short. I've realised, you know, baby, 2-year-old, he doesn't speak many words, so it's as deep as I can talk.
I was going to say,
Bluey on. Yeah.
Bluey, that's right, best friends.
But
with
like,
Bluey.
how deep a conversation have you had in the past that you would talk about? Like, you know, I'm talking ladies' toilets deep conversations.
Oh yeah, no, I do some good deep conversations in the ladies' toilet. Look, I love a good D&M. That's what this song's all about. It's a bit more of a passionate love song, and it is about breaking down the walls and being able to just be your true self and be able to just open up. That's what I wrote this song about.
So you say that's what the song's about, but to me, the song's about the saxophone solo.
It is, I know, right? How good is that?
Why has the saxophone gone away? Is it time to bring it back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you love saxophone?
I played saxophone.
Yes. Did you?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, and because I grew up in probably the 80s, 90s, where every song had a saxophone
Yes.
solo, and it was cool.
It's
and then
beautiful.
It's amazing.
It's so beautiful, and I just love. I think I want more of that in more of my songs. I love a brass section. I feel like the musical element to this song is my favourite. You know, it just moves me, and I love the saxophone. It's amazing.
Bonnie, you posted some amazing throwbacks recently. We'll just have a look at them now. Did you know,
damn.
do you think you had any idea back then that these would be so on point in 2025?
She had some sass.
Oh my gosh.
I think that little girl, I sort of look back at those photos and I loved singing so much. And I'm just so glad that I'm still doing what I loved. I always had that dream, that goal, and here I am. I'm giving it my best shot.
When you were pregnant, were you ever playing your music to the bump?
Yeah, well, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. This guy loves the saxophone.
Yeah.
Really? Loves it.
What's the thing of the project? This is news delivered differently. Count that as a viewer.
Don't traumatise the baby yet. You and your hubby Sam, you did a big gender reveal, which was very, very sweet. And this is what was announced. Let's have a look.
You didn't see the aftermath. I actually threw the blue. I thought I was having a girl. I was so convinced. I love a boy.
What made you think
very
that?
different pregnancy. I was very sick. Yes. And I thought, you know, I wasn't sick for my first, and I thought, yeah, it's definitely a girl. It wasn't. So another boy, which I love. I love boys, but I was
two boys. They're great.
Yeah,
me too.
All right,
me
good.
too.
So I'm in for a treat.
They're involved.
Hey, just quickly, what a time for Neighbours. So obviously you're a Neighbours alumni.
Yes.
So it's 40th anniversary this week. At the same time, it's recently been announced that it's ending.
Yeah,
it's just
so sad.
Yeah. What's your fondest memory of Neighbours?
My fondest memory, I think the people. Oh look, this is nice. It's nice having a throwback. It was the most amazing time for me. I think it really made me find my feet. I had a bit of structure in my life. Just singing all of my life, I kind of didn't know where I sat for a long time. Neighbours was just a really cool training ground for me. It was amazing.
I was going to ask about scandals, but we have just run out of time.
No scandal, you ain't going to get it anyway.
You can come back and tell us all that in a deep conversation, perhaps. It is out now. Would you please thank Bonnie Anderson?
Thank you.
Still ahead, the new poll that reveals that men reckon they're actually good at multitasking. Does an email on the loo count? That is the question.
Let's get to our top story now. And Israel has launched what it terms targeted ground activities with troops expanding operations in central and southern Gaza. One day after bombing resumed, the truce is over. Families that had begun to return to their homes now facing the very real possibility they'll have to flee once again.
We woke up to the sound of explosions at 2 a.m. Some people were killed and some ran away. At least 10 people were killed in our neighbour's house and there was smoke and shrapnel everywhere. We just kept running. We have no idea where we should go.
2 months after it began, the ceasefire has crumbled. Israel today sending troops into Gaza after an aerial bombardment of the Strip.
The airstrike came suddenly. We thought our home was hit, but it turned out that the target was the school next door.
My uncle and his daughters, my sister and her children, and my brother are all buried under the rubble.
Talks over the second phase of the truce had broken down last week. The US and Israel pushing for a renegotiation that would see more hostages freed. Hamas insisting all parties stick to the terms of the original agreement.
In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. Well, that didn't happen. And this is why I authorized yesterday the renewal of military action against Hamas.
That military action resulting in the deaths of more than 400 people as airstrikes hit shelters where families slept.
Many of them are women and children. This has to be stopped immediately.
Gazan hospitals overwhelmed with the injured, rows of the dead lining the courtyard. A UN staffer was killed and 5 others severely injured when a strike hit a UN building in Gaza. One official claiming the army knew what the facility was.
In my opinion, this was not an accident. It cannot be categorized as an accident. I'm shocked and devastated by this tragic news.
Fury spilling into the streets of Jerusalem. Israeli protesters claiming the hostilities will further endanger hostages. But Netanyahu has promised these strikes are just the beginning.
I call on the people of Gaza, get out of harm's way, move to safer areas.
I'm an ordinary person. I just want to live a normal life like everyone else. We don't expect for more, not even bread, food or water. All we want is to live in peace.
Dr Wajid Khan is an ICU specialist from Sydney. He's currently in northern Gaza at the Baptist Hospital there. Dr Khan, we've seen vision of hospitals overwhelmed with patients. What's it been like for you working there on the ground in Gaza?
It's been quite horrific because we're not able to provide really any sort of care to the patients who are coming. The Gaza health system's already pretty much collapsed, and so whenever we have an event like the mass casualty event we had two days ago, we simply can't just manage any other cases. So we're finding that the patients that come, very selective patients we're able to treat, but unfortunately, most of the patients are dying because we don't have the medications. Our equipment it's not working anymore, or it's been damaged, and also we don't have enough medical staff to manage the cases that we are currently seeing.
What's the situation there with just pain medication?
It's almost non-existent. So just to give you an example, when we put, if patients can't breathe, a routine procedure we do is intubation, where we put a breathing tube across the vocal cords into patient's lung. We usually have a sedative medication, pain relief medication, and a muscle relaxant to make it easier. We didn't have any of those procedures, any of those medications. And so just to sort of portray that, I had to sort of put that breathing tube in someone who's awake, and he was screaming and coughing up blood into my face as I was doing this life-saving procedure. So people who are dying, unfortunately, we cannot provide, dignity and comfort care because that medication is very minimal and we have to ration it.
So what do you say to people when you just don't have the medication on hand to save their lives?
This is a very difficult conversation because I've actually never had that conversation before, sort of coming to Gaza. Everyone here's had sort of some family member who has lost. All the people that I've seen have been critically unwell, so I've had to have that conversation with their family. And it's the most horrific experience being not able to treat patients with comfort and dignity, even if they're not going to make it, because we don't even have that medication.
And what's it like working under these types of conditions?
It's almost impossible. You know that you're doing the best you can with the limited of resources. It's just because we've had no influx of sort of medications, and even in the ICU, we haven't even got enough food or water to sort of feed our ICU patients at this point in time. So the situation we're currently in, if you're not going to sort of die by the bombs, you're almost going to die in hospital because we've got very limited supply.
Dr Khan, it is heartbreaking to hear what you're saying, and I shake as I ask you this question, but how are your staff and your colleagues coping with this?
I have to say the local colleagues who have been in Gaza since the beginning are amazing. They're very resilient, and I think a lot of us have kind of not sort of processed what's happening because we're just sort of trying to get the job done as it comes. But I'd have to say that I have not met sort of the local doctors and nurses and all the staff here on how resilient they are, how helpful they are. It's just amazing to see.
What makes a doctor leave the comfort of Sydney to run towards the danger to help people on the other side of the world? What pushed you over there?
I think looking at the situation and how we've all felt quite helpless, even though we've got limited supplies, I think being here, trying to support the local staff, it's all I can actually really do. And so that was the main thing that sort of led me to come to Gaza, because I think we need to all try in our capacity to try to do what we can, and this is something that I can do.
Are you aware of just how precarious your own safety is by doing what you're doing right now?
Yes, and my family are also quite worried and concerned. And the first bombing that happened was very close to our hospital. And the whole way through, I knew this was going to be very precarious and very risky. But I think at the end of the day, we all got to do, what we can to sort of, help the civilian population here, because it's so much more horrific than the actual reports that are coming out.
Dr Khan, such a privilege to speak to you tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, while Gazans battle for medicine that they need, it's a very different story. We are so fortunate in Australia that medicine is accessible and affordable. It's something that we just come to expect, particularly under our pharmaceutical benefits scheme. But that's in the news today too, because that policy could become the latest pawn in Trump's tariff war as America takes aim at our cheap meds.
Let me be very clear and explicit. The pharmaceutical benefits scheme is not for sale.
The government today fending off attacks from Big Pharma in the US as it announced a near $700 million PBS funding boost to make medicine cheaper for Aussies.
Without the measures we have put in place, the maximum price of a PBS medicine next year would be more than $50. If we're elected, it will be half that at $25.
Those cheaper meds are under fire from US medical giants who have written a letter to Donald Trump labelling our PBS an unfair trade practice.
It's simply not right to say that the PBS is unfair. It's great Australian policy that keeps Australians healthy. The PBS shouldn't be held to ransom.
Under the PBS, our government negotiates directly with suppliers to secure lower prices for Aussies.
They're suggesting that they could potentially put up prices more if they didn't have to have that negotiated price with the government, and that new medications should be able to charge whatever they like.
Big Pharma urging Trump to slap a tariff on Australia's pharmaceutical exports in retaliation.
What we're seeing here is corporate bullying. The health of Australians shouldn't be a bargaining chip in a trade war.
It's not the first time the US has pulled this move. The Howard government faced a similar campaign against the PBS while negotiating a US free trade agreement more than 20 years ago.
Obviously, their interest is in selling their medicines at top dollar. Our interest is in making medicines cheaper for Australian patients. So there's obviously a tension there.
Australia sells more than $1.5 billion worth of pharmaceutical products to the US each year, making it our third biggest export behind beef and gold.
What we would say to the government right now is you've failed on negotiating on aluminium tariffs. You need to get back to the US and make sure that Australia's PBS is protected from any action.
So, could our Aussie pharmaceutical exports be Trump's next target? And how safe is our PBS?
Greg Jericho is from the Australia Institute. He's here to walk us through it. Greg, so American drug companies are saying our PBS scheme is unfair. Do they have any argument at all here?
Well, to be honest, Ali, really their argument is they'd like to sell insulin for $100 a pop instead of $7, or they'd like to sell to Australians anti-anxiety medication for $420 a box instead of $20 a box. I mean, that's really their argument. They'll talk about restraint of trade or subsidies, but really you just need to look through all that and realise what it's about is they want to make more profits.
You look like you're plotting their downfall from Batman's lair there tonight, Greg. This is our third biggest export to the US. How damaging would it be if they did slap us with tariffs?
Oh, look, you're right. It is third biggest to the US, but, you know, if you talk in terms of overall trade, it's not a huge industry in Australia. But it's something that certainly if they were going to put a tariff on just Australian pharmaceuticals, that would be harmful to the Australian exporters. But we don't really know what's going on in Trump's head at the moment. And, you know, the pharmaceutical lobbyists in America would probably want them to put tariffs on every nation on their pharmaceuticals, in which case it's not going to hurt Australia any more than it's going to hurt anyone else. And all it'll do is make Americans have to pay even more for their drugs, which seems to be just amazing that you could even pay more. But that's pretty much what would happen. So, yeah, it would hurt, but it certainly would hurt a lot more if we were to do anything to the PBS.
What does the Aussie government need to do to fight back?
Well, look, we do actually have some leverage. As the story pointed out, you know, we've got a US-Australia free trade agreement, which for some reason we're still honouring, even though Donald Trump clearly isn't honouring it. And the reality is when John Howard made that deal, we gave up a fair bit. We gave up a lot on intellectual property, on copyright, and even a bit on pharmaceuticals to let the US pharmaceutical industry in here to help, you know, to lobby. We could basically say, well, you've seemed to have ripped up the free trade agreement. We might do the same. And there's a lot of things in there that some very powerful American companies would not like us to touch. And, you know, I think we should get on the front foot a little bit.
Isn't that just a trade war then? And then everything gets more expensive for everyone?
Well,
I mean, you know, beef's probably the next thing and it just never ends.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. We signed a free trade agreement about one of the few things we got was an agreement on beef that we could get into the American market. If they're not going to do that, then what are we doing here? Why are we still holding to free trade agreement principles, which actually benefited America, not us? You know, America did a lot better out of the free trade agreement than Australia did. So why should we keep doing them a favour when they're not even, you know, doing the things that they agreed to that at least did give us some benefit?
All that tariff talk, it makes me crave a Bex and a good lie down. I hope they're not putting that up, Greg. Thanks for your time.
No worries, guys.
All right, you're off to the project. We'll be back soon. We're back. What's the project?
Let's get some more news now. And chilling footage of the man who murdered water polo coach Lily James has been released by the New South Wales coroner. It shows Paul Tyson rehearsing the 21-year-old's murder in a bathroom at the Sydney school where they worked. Also made public footage of Tyson testing out hammers at a hardware store 2 days before he killed her. Her parents also addressed the inquest today, apologising to Lily for not being able to protect her from Tyson after they broke up.
And Gina Reinhardt remains Australia's wealthiest person with an estimated fortune of $46.34 billion. The Australians' Rich 250 list also puts Clive Palmer and Atlassian founder Mike Cannon-Brookes in the top 10. Nicola Forrest is in the top 10 for the first time, now that her wealth is officially separate from her husband, or former husband, Andrew Twiggy Forrest. The top 10 are worth a combined $250 billion, up from $230 billion last year.
Now, what I love about that, I think the Forrests got divorced purely for this reason. It's like, guys, we've got everything in the world. You know what we don't have? 2 spots in the top 10 rich list.
Excellent.
That's the only way to do it. That's a long game.
Yeah, well done. You really thought this through.
I certainly did. Now, overnight, Donald Trump released the unredacted JFK assassination files.
Yes, it's true. It's 63,000 pages of blurry, somewhat disorganised, got to squint hard to see PDF files that so far are kind of really allegedly very boring.
So the woman who puts the S in NSA, Susie Youssef, and me, Nick, Codebreaker Cody, are bringing you the best bits. Buckle up.
Wow.
And you know it's serious because the lights just changed. The documents revealed new details about the alleged shooter Lee Harvey Oswald. Apparently, 2 months before pulling the trigger, he purportedly made a mysterious trip to Mexico. A killer, allegedly.
A US Army intelligence officer named Gary Underhill reportedly told his mates a gun-running, drug-dealing CIA clique helped knock off JFK. If I ever get assassinated, I hope it's by a group as cool as those guys.
I'm sure it will be. Oh, and is there an Australian connection? Yes, thank you for asking. Supposedly there is. Apparently the US Embassy in Canberra maybe got some anonymous calls predicting the assassination both before and after JFK shuffled off this mortal plane. And yeah, maybe they didn't tell anyone about it, so we kind of begged the Yanks to maybe not sort of mention it to anyone that we didn't tell anyone. Yeah, so thanks, bye.
And finally, one of the documents claims a KGB official didn't really rate Lee Harvey Oswald's marksmanship, saying that when he tried target firing in the USSR, he was a poor shot. Well, history will tell you he got better.
Allegedly he did. Now, more documents are being digitised and we'll bring you updates as they come to hand, allegedly. But hold on a second, Nick, you just might want to deal with that.
What's the sniper pointing there for? Look at my head. I've got a massive head. I'm a sniper's dream. Go the Bolts. There you go. I don't want to tell a sniper how to do their job, but look at this melon. Oh.
I'm glad we found the studio sniper, though. That's what we've been looking for a while. After a break. See you soon. Project. Now, apparently, men can multitask after all.
Can they single task?
No, single tasking is different. A new survey has found 60% of men claim they can do more than one thing at once. For example, Quarter say they can send work emails while on the loo. Champion. Yep. They can also brush their teeth in the shower to save time. Excellent. Almost 20% have revealed they pay bills while on public transport. Efficient. Some even manage to shop online during work meetings.
Okay.
We've aced that.
No, there is multitasking and there is multitasking. I'm not going to say which of my sisters, but I visited my family last night and I heard my sister on the phone in the toilet with her husband, also meal planning, and by the time she came out, she had discussed all Christmas plans for the year.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's impressive, but you skipped over the reason they were in the toilet together.
No, she was on the phone.
And you think that's cool? I'm drunk at work. Pretty good.
There you go. Our next guest is full of country charm.
Thomas Rhett is a pop country superstar known for big barn party anthems and wedding-worthy ballads. No stranger to a stadium, the 5-time Grammy nominee has collabed with the likes of Katy Perry and Nick Jonas and topped the country chart 20 times with songs like this one. We've nabbed him for a chat ahead of his headline set at Australia's biggest, most boot-scootin' country music festival, CMC Rocks.
Please welcome Thomas Rhett.
What's up?
Hey,
How y'all doing?
Great, thank you. You're back in Australia for CMC Rocks. Last time you did it was back in 2019. And I want to know, what's the difference between American country music fans and Aussie ones?
You know, I would say that it's kind of the same. You know, I remember when I came over here for the first time, I was just like, how in the world am I playing music in Australia and people know the words to my songs? And I was absolutely blown away and kind of been counting down the days to come back, and so really glad to be here today. So,
country music's really having a moment. Obviously, there's a big part of the world that has loved it for a long time, but I work on a breakfast radio show, a top 40 station. We play country all the time now. It's the best.
For sure.
What do you say to people who haven't given it a go yet?
Man, maybe get on board. It's happening. You know, I mean, I grew up with a daddy that sang country music, so country music has been a part of my life since I was a little kid, so I don't really know much different. And so I think if you were to ask me at a young age if I was ever going to be playing shows anywhere but in North America, I would have called you crazy. And now we're playing shows in, you know, the UK and in Australia and Canada. And this has definitely kind of been the biggest moment for country music that I have ever seen. And I'm just really glad to be a part of the genre as a whole right now. So.
Thomas, you seem to be a real romantic. I mean, your wife has appeared in a number of your music videos. You could have had an actor, but you didn't choose to go that way. Did you have to convince her, or did she know what she was signing up for?
I've definitely had to convince her many times. You know, I've known my wife since I was in first grade, so we kind of grew up together and dated a little bit off and on in high school and got married when we were 22. And I remember when my career was first starting, I was doing one of my first couple of music videos, and I was like, can you please be in this with me? Like, there's no way that I could be an actor. Like, I don't think I could kiss anybody else. There's no way I could hold somebody else's hand. I was like, can you please just be in this with me? And so she's been a real trooper, getting to be a part of a lot of my content pieces, and she is definitely, you know, the source of where I get all my inspiration from when I write love songs. And so it's only fitting that she's in, you know, a lot of the videos as well.
Well,
so.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear. But at what point is she just not impressed anymore when you write a love song about her?
I don't know. That might have died out 6 or 7 years ago.
You had a pretty good run.
No, I had a pretty good run. You know, every year that's kind of my goal, is just trying to figure out a new way to say I love you.
Well, mate, you've worked with Katy Perry, Nick Jonas, Teddy Swims. Who else would you love to get on a country track?
Man, my longtime person would be Bruno Mars. I've asked several times. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But if you're watching this, Bruno, let's do a song together.
I think what Nick's asking is, would you like him to come along and just do a song or two with you?
I can't sing.
Wait,
Who are you talking about?
Who are you talking about? This guy.
He's trying to get me, but I can't sing. I can't do it. Teddy
Can
Swims,
you write songs?
No, not at all. Teddy Swims looks like if I had a naughty brother.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell Teddy you said that. It's amazing.
Hey, before we let you go, your dad, Rhett, he's also a country music star. Are any of your girls going to follow in the family footsteps?
I don't know. They're starting to show quite a bit of passion about music. I bought my 9-year-old a piano. I bought my 7-year-old a drum set. I got my 5-year-old a guitar. My goal is that they start like an all-sister band with each other. I think that'd be so fun. But I think they kind of get it honest. They watch me all day walking around the house, humming and singing melodies and writing songs. And so maybe like me, growing up with a dad that sang for a living, it kind of was innately part of what I was going to do for a living, I think. And so, I don't know, they're still so young, though. They're kind of involved in everything, sports-wise. And so, but maybe one day. They do love music, though.
So isn't that sweet, though, Thomas? Because I'm a stand-up comedian, so I've got a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy, and they just walk around the house swearing and telling dick jokes. I like your house better. It sounds a lot sweeter.
That's amazing.
I feel like Amazing is doing a lot of work. Thomas is headlining at CMC Rocks.
Yeah.
If you can get your hands on tickets this weekend, would you please thank Thomas Rhett?
Yeah, thank y'all so much. Thanks for having me on.
I know the feeling, Nick. I know the feeling. That is it for tonight. Thank you,